Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So, since our last video, I added in 2 more razor blades. This one down here and this one right here. And I added in a third spider right here. So, I think we can safely say that our apple is jam-packed with enough dangerous goodies, and we can call it done. But the first thing we're going to work on today is, I just want to add a few more details to our kids, and then we can move on to the background. And the first thing we're going to add in is, I want to give this kid some devil horns to go along with his devil costume. And we're going to use these right here. So I'm going to cut these out. And we'll select that and copy that. And we'll go to our child 1 group and just paste that in over his head. And we got some blonde hairs from the little girl wearing it, so we might need to get rid of some of those. And I'm just going to warp it a little bit to get it to fit even closer. Alright, that should be good. And I'm going to mask off where it goes behind the ear. Alright, so I want his horns to look like they're actually sitting in his hair, not just laying on top of it. So I'm going to need some of his hairs overlapping the horns right here. And so how we're going to do that is, we're going to go back to his head group. And in there, we have this layer here of all his little hairs clipped out. So I'm just going to take my lasso tool and just select those hairs. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste those in front of the headband. And I'm going to do a color overlay on darken, and just take a sample out of his hair. That should be good. And then I'm going to clip that layer to the horn layer. And just bring it down right about here. Actually, I think I need that a little darker. Oh, that's better. And I'm going to warp those just so they slightly overlap the headband. And then I'm just going to mask off the headband a little bit more. And I'm going to put a multiply layer underneath that headband. And just paint in some shadow underneath it. Alright, so now it looks more like his headband is actually sitting in his hair as opposed to just laying on top of it. But I do want to get rid of some of these blonde hairs from that girl, so I think I'm just going to make a new layer, clip to the horn layer, and put it on darken. Take a sample out of the red from the headband. And just paint over those hairs. I'm not going to worry about every single blonde hair, just the more noticeable bigger ones, like this one here. Alright, so I think we're all done with this kid here, so let's move on to this one. And for this guy, I need to, his hand is going to be reaching up for the apple, so I need to add in that hand. And so I'm going to try to use this hand right here. So I'm going to clip it out. This hand is a little blurrier than I would prefer. I'd prefer it a little more sharp, but we'll try it out and see how it looks. Might not be an issue. And let's select that. And bring that in here. So let's go to our child 2 group. And we'll just paste that on top. Gotta flip that. And we're gonna have it right about there. And I just need to add a few adjustments to get the hand to match his face. So I'm just going to start off by darkening it up a little bit. Then I'll maybe do a hue saturation adjustment. Adjust those colors a little bit. Alright, so I think those colors are pretty close. Now, the kid whose hand this came from was a lot younger than this kid here, so his fingers are a little chubbier and a little stumpier than they should be. So I'm going to go into liquefy, and I'm just going to lean those fingers up a little bit. So I'm just going to make him a little less chubby and stumpy. Yeah, it should be good. Alright, so I want to add a little bit of his sleeve and his arm right about there. So let's go back into his body layer. And I had this layer where I painted over a bunch of stuff, and I'm just going to turn that off for now. And I'm going to clip out this part of his arm. And let's just get about that much. Alright, so I'm going to copy that, and I'll turn that paint layer back on. Turn his hand back on. And I'll paste in his arm. And let's see if we can't sort of get this arm to blend in with the hand. So maybe the hand needs to go up a little more. About like that. That's pretty good, but I think we need to mask off some of the sleeve. Let's mask off like this whole section down here. Actually, you know what? Let's not mask it off. Let's just cut it off. So I'm just gonna cut that off and paste it in behind. You know what? I think I need to get rid of this section here too. Because we have a very extreme perspective, so we don't need to see much of the arm. I think just a subtle hint of the arm and sleeve would be enough. Alright, I think that's good, but we do need to get rid of his old arm down there, so you don't see it. So I'm going to make a new layer and clip it to the body layer. And I'm just going to paint out his old arm. Just going to start off with some solid colors, and then we'll blend them a little more with the opacity turned down. So we'll turn down the opacity, and we'll just blend these colors together a little bit more. Alright, I think that'll work for now. I'll probably go back in later and clean some of this up a little more, but I think for now we can just leave it. And I just see one more thing on the hand I want to fix. I have a little bit of a dark outline here, so I'm just going to make a new layer and clip it to that hand. Put it on lighten. Take a sample out of here. And I'm just going to paint in over that dark area. Alright, so I think our kids are pretty much done. We have all their details laid in, so now let's move on to the background. And the first thing I want to add to the background is the porch, the front porch, like the floor of the porch. So I'm going to use this image here, like a nice old creaky looking wooden porch. And we'll paste that in down here. And I'm just going to distort it so the perspective is more, it's closer to what we want. Alright, I think that looks pretty good right there, but maybe we'll add a little bit of a curve to that and get sort of a, almost a fisheye perspective. So make it a little round. We're just going to have some exaggerated, almost cartoonish perspective. I think that looks pretty good. And next, let's add some pumpkins to her porch. So I got some pictures for those. And we're just going to grab some of these. So maybe just grab these two. You know what, let's just let's use quick selection and try to make our lives a little easier instead of using the pen tool for everything. Alright, so let's bring that in here. And maybe these are like down here. And let's get some pumpkins for over here. So I'll just grab this one right here. And again, let's see if we can just quick select that. And bring that in. And that can go like right down here at the corner. Okay, so now I need to paint some shadows underneath those pumpkins, because right now they're just kind of hovering and not really interacting with the deck. So I'm going to make a new layer, put it on multiply. And I'm just going to paint in some shadows. And let's paint some shadows over here as well. Just a little underneath down here. And some bigger ones back here. And I also want to darken up the deck a little bit, because right now it's just too light. So I'm going to make a levels adjustment on the deck layer. And I'm just going to darken that up. And since our main light source is going to be coming sort of up this way from the area of the door, and I'm going to mask off that adjustment a little bit so it's brighter here and darker along the edges. And let's also darken up our pumpkins, because right now they're a little too bright. And we'll darken up this one as well. And let's put all those in a group. And we'll just call them pumpkins. Alright, so next let's add in more of a porch. We're going to have two columns, one going right there and one going right there. So we're going to add those in next. And we're going to use these two columns here. So I'm just going to use my magic wand tool and feather it out a bit. Select the inverse and just contract it by like 2. And I'll grab this column first and paste that in. And again, we want some nice exaggerated perspective, so we're really going to stretch that out. And our perspective isn't going to be 100% accurate. Like I said, it's very exaggerated and cartoony, so we don't have to worry about accuracy too much. Just as long as it looks cool. Alright, so let's grab that second one and paste that in. Alright, and let's darken those up just a little bit. And this one. Alright, so next we're going to add in the railing to the deck, because you're going to see a little bit of the railing right there, and a little bit right there. So that'll be our next step. And I shouldn't need too much of this, because you're not going to see very much of it in our image. And this should be fairly easy to clip out, because it's just a bunch of straight lines. Or mostly straight lines. Alright, that should be everything, so we will select that and we'll paste that in here. And we'll just distort them a bunch so they roughly match the distortion of the railing and deck. Like that should be good. And maybe just add a little bit of a warp to it so it follows that same curve that we put in our deck. Alright, and I'm just going to copy that and flip it, and we'll just use that same picture for the other side. And let's get the color of these railings to match a little bit closer to the rest of the deck. So I think if we just make a hue saturation adjustment and turn down our saturation and make it a little more red, maybe. Yeah, that's good. So I'm just going to duplicate that adjustment and clip it to the other railing. Alright, so we got our porch basically roughed in. And let's start adding in some of the front yard. So I think I'm just going to just roughly chop it out with the lasso. And let's group all those porch layers. Call that porch. So right about there, and again, I'm just gonna warp it to give it a little more of that sort of fisheye curve. Alright, that should be good. And this picture is from the daytime, obviously, so we want to darken that up to make it look a little more like night. So I'm going to put an adjustment layer on that. And let's just see if we can't darken it up a little bit. And we're going to be adding in some blues and purples to the background, so it'll really look like night. But for now, I'm just laying in the base elements. Alright, so I think that's good. So next, let's put in the other side of the street. And I'm just gonna select this right here. And I'm gonna paste that in behind. And again, we're just gonna distort it a bunch. And we need to add that curved fisheye lens. Alright, that should be pretty good. So next, let's add in the street. And I'm just going to take this chunk of street right there. Alright, so we have all of our basic elements laid out for this picture, but obviously we still need to do a lot of work as far as color and lighting, because as of now, it's all just kind of doing its own thing and it's not really meshing together. But we're going to save that for the next video. So for now, thank you for watching and take care.